My name is Grace Thompson, and even though I'm 32 years old, I still remember how differently my family treated my graduation compared to my sister Chloe's. While they had fully funded her entire education and bought her a brand new BMW to celebrate, I worked 4 jobs, took out loans, and rode the subway to my ceremony. What's ironic? When they announced the winner of the most prestigious science award that day, my name echoed through those speakers. Before I share how everything changed that day, let me know where you're watching from. And if you've ever felt underestimated, hit that subscribe button. Trust me, the moment my name echoed through those speakers, everything shifted. Growing up in Riverside, a middle-class suburban town in Connecticut, the signs of favoritism were subtle at first. Our house wasn't luxurious, but comfortable. 4 bedrooms and a backyard where neighborhood kids gathered for summer barbecues. My parents, Robert and Diana Thompson, were hardworking people with traditional values. Dad worked as an accountant at a local firm, while Mom taught 3rd grade at the elementary school 3 blocks from our house. As far back as I can remember, I was the responsible one. Being 4 years older than Chloe meant I was supposed to set an example, be mature, and understand. When Chloe was born, the dynamic shifted in ways my 8-year-old self couldn't fully grasp. Suddenly, my academic achievements became expected rather than celebrated, while Chloe received praise for even the smallest accomplishments. Mom and Chloe shared an instant bond that I never experienced. They had the same laugh, the same golden brown hair that curled at the ends, the same social butterfly personality that drew people to them. I inherited Dad's more reserved nature and analytical mind, but even he seemed more enchanted with Chloe than he ever was with me. When I brought home straight A's in 5th grade, Mom glanced at my report card and said, "That's what we expect from you, Grace." The same week, Chloe received a participation award in her kindergarten dance recital, and they took her out for ice cream and bought her a new dress. I sat in the back seat of our family sedan, quietly watching as they celebrated her participation while my achievement collected dust on the refrigerator. For my 12th birthday, I received practical gifts: a scientific calculator, a desk lamp, and a planner. For Chloe at the same age, they threw a surprise party with 20 friends at the local skating rink and gave her the portable CD player I had been asking for all year. Despite the uneven attention, I found solace in books and learning. By 13, I knew I wanted to pursue biochemistry. The complexity of molecular structures fascinated me, and I spent hours in the school library reading advanced science materials. My 8th grade science teacher, Mrs. Harrison, was the first person who truly recognized my potential. She stayed after school to discuss scientific journals with me and recommended summer programs for gifted students in STEM fields. "You have a brilliant mind, Grace," she told me once. "Never let anyone dim your light." Those words became my mantra during difficult family moments, like when my parents missed my science fair win because Chloe had a minor role in the school play the same evening. I stood alone, accepting my first place certificate while other parents took photos and celebrated with their children. High school only widened the gap. I graduated as valedictorian with a perfect 4.0 GPA and acceptance letters from several prestigious universities. My graduation party was a small gathering in our backyard with a homemade cake. 3 years later, Chloe graduated with a 3.2 GPA and a social circle 3 times the size of mine. Her graduation celebration was a catered event at a local country club where my parents proudly introduced her to everyone as their social butterfly headed for great things. Well, the contrast hurt. I had learned to build my own support system outside our family. Mrs. Harrison attended my graduation along with my best friend Emma and her parents, who had become like second family to me. Their genuine pride in my accomplishments helped soothe the sting of my parents' divided attention. My passion for biochemistry grew stronger through high school, especially after completing a summer internship at the local community college lab.
I discovered my interest in developing treatments for rare diseases after reading about families struggling to find cures for their children. That purpose gave me direction and strengthened my resolve to pursue higher education, despite knowing the financial challenges ahead. The night of my high school graduation, as I sat alone on our porch swing looking at my acceptance letters, I made a promise to myself that I would succeed regardless of the support I received. Little did I know how that determination would be tested in the years to come.
The college acceptance letters arrived during my final semester of high school. Harvard, Stanford, MIT, and Princeton all wanted me, each offering partial academic scholarships that recognized my perfect GPA and research potential. I had allowed myself to dream about these possibilities for years, imagining laboratories with cutting-edge equipment and professors who could mentor me toward breakthroughs in disease treatment. The family meeting about college funding happened on a Sunday afternoon in April. I entered our living room with printouts of financial information, scholarship details, and a carefully prepared presentation about the remaining costs. Chloe, then a freshman in high school, sprawled across the couch texting friends, while mom and dad sat stiffly in their matching armchairs. "We need to discuss how much we can contribute to your education," Dad began, adjusting his glasses in that nervous way he did when conversations turned to money. I nodded, sliding my neatly organized folder across the coffee table. "I have all the information here. With the scholarships I've secured, we would need about $15,000 per year for MIT, which is my top choice. I can also work part-time to help with expenses." Mom and Dad exchanged uncomfortable glances before Mom spoke. "Grace, we've put aside $40,000 total for your college education. That's all we can offer." The number hit me like a physical blow. $40,000 would barely cover 1 year at any of the prestigious universities that had accepted me. My careful plans began crumbling as I did the mental calculations. "But the college fund," I said, my voice smaller than intended. "You both always talked about the college fund for both of us." Dad cleared his throat. "We need to be practical. The fund has grown, but with the cost of education these days, we have to make difficult decisions. We believe you're capable of figuring this out. You've always been our responsible one." "What about Chloe?" I asked, already suspecting the answer. Mom brightened instantly. "Well, Chloe is different. She'll need more support to succeed. We plan to fully fund her education when her time comes." The injustice of it burned through me. "So you're saying that because I worked hard and earned scholarships, I get less support? And because Chloe hasn't demonstrated the same academic focus, she gets more?" "That's not what we're saying," Dad replied defensively. "We're acknowledging that you and your sister have different strengths and needs. You've always been independent and resourceful." I sat in stunned silence as they continued explaining their decision. Behind their words, the message was clear. My academic success had become a justification for withholding support, rather than a reason to invest in my potential. That night, I cried silently into my pillow, careful not to let anyone hear. The betrayal cut deeper than I had words for. The universities that had recognized my potential now seemed like distant stars I could no longer reach. The next morning, I called Mrs. Harrison, my voice still raw from crying. "Oh, Grace," she said after I explained the situation, "I'm so sorry. This isn't fair to you." "What should I do?" I asked, feeling lost for the first time in my academic journey. "Come to my house this afternoon. We're going to figure this out together." Mrs. Harrison and her husband, a financial aid counselor at the community college, helped me navigate new options. State University had a strong biochemistry program and had offered me a full tuition scholarship. While it lacked the prestige and research opportunities of my dream schools, it offered a debt-free path forward. I secured a job as a campus library assistant that would start 2 weeks before classes and found affordable off-campus housing with 3 roommates. The apartment was small, with peeling paint and unreliable heating, but the rent fit my tight budget. Meanwhile, Chloe casually mentioned at dinner that she wanted to attend UCLA someday because they have the cutest campus and it's always sunny in California. Mom immediately began researching housing options near UCLA, talking excitedly about visiting the campus together. This summer before college began, I worked 2 jobs, saving every penny for books and supplies. At a family dinner in August, Mom proudly announced they had already set aside $80,000 for Chloe's future education. She didn't seem to notice how I froze mid-bite, the unfairness of it stealing my appetite. The day I moved into my apartment, Dad drove me in his pickup truck, helped carry my few belongings upstairs, and awkwardly patted my shoulder before leaving. "You'll be fine, Grace. You always figure things out." His standard line that once felt like confidence in my abilities now sounded like an excuse to provide less. Standing alone in my cramped room with secondhand furniture, I promised myself their lack of support would not define my future. I taped my acceptance letters from Harvard and MIT to my wall as reminders of what others saw in me, even if my own parents didn't. The contrast between my situation and my classmates became immediately apparent during orientation week. While other freshmen moved into dorms with their parents' help, carrying new bedding and electronics, I arrived with a single suitcase and a determination to prove that circumstances don't determine destiny. My first day at State University, I woke up at 5 in the morning for my opening shift at the coffee shop. As I walked across the quiet campus in the pre-dawn darkness, I thought about my parents' words about being resourceful and independent. They had no idea how resourceful I was about to become.
My first semester at State University established a grueling pattern that would continue for the next 4 years. My typical Monday began at 5:30 in the morning for a 6 to 9 shift at the campus coffee shop before rushing to organic chemistry at 9:30. Between classes, I worked at the library, often eating lunch standing up while reshelving books. Evenings were split between study groups and my weekend job at a local restaurant, where I worked Friday through Sunday nights as a server. Sleep became a luxury I could rarely afford. 4 or 5 hours a night was my norm, with caffeine sustaining me through the day. Dark circles became a permanent feature under my eyes, and I kept a strict budget that allowed for no spontaneity or indulgence. Meanwhile, Chloe's high school years continued in a bubble of parental support and enthusiasm. During holiday breaks, I would return home to hear endless stories about her social achievements and extracurricular activities. My parents had installed a countdown calendar to her graduation in the kitchen, something they had never done for me. The contrast between our lives became painfully clear during my sophomore year Christmas break. I arrived home exhausted after working a double shift to afford the bus ticket, carrying a single backpack with my belongings. Chloe bounced around the house showing off her new clothes, electronics, and jewelry accumulated from months of parental indulgence. "Look at my new laptop," she gushed, displaying a top-of-the-line MacBook Pro. "Mom and Dad got it early because I need it for school projects." I thought of my 5-year-old refurbished laptop that frequently overheated during the research analyses I ran for my advanced biochemistry courses. When it had broken the previous semester, I had taken on extra shifts for 3 weeks to afford repairs rather than asking my parents for help. My Christmas gifts that year consisted of a pack of highlighters, a planner, and a gift card for the campus bookstore with just enough to cover one textbook. Chloe received an iPhone, designer clothes, and concert tickets. When I returned to campus after break, the weight of the disparity settled heavily on me. For the first time, I considered dropping out. What was the point of pushing myself to exhaustion when no one in my family seemed to value my efforts? My roommate Jessica found me sitting on our couch that night, staring blankly at my financial aid forms for the upcoming semester. "Whoa, you look like you've seen a ghost," she said, dropping her backpack and sitting beside me. "What's going on?" I rarely discussed my family situation, preferring to focus on moving forward rather than dwelling on things I couldn't change. But that night, the dam broke. I told Jessica everything about the differential treatment, the financial struggles, and the growing resentment I tried so hard to suppress. Jessica listened without interrupting, then wrapped me in a tight hug. "I admire you so much," she said. "You're 10 times stronger than I would be in your situation. And, for what it's worth, I see how brilliant you are, even if your family doesn't." That friendship became my lifeline. Jessica, a psychology major from a working-class family, understood struggle in ways my sister never would. We created study schedules together, shared meals to save money, and propped each other up during our lowest moments. During my junior year, I met Professor Martinez, who would become another crucial supporter. After I scored highest in his advanced biochemical analysis course, he invited me to his office. "Miss Thompson," he said, peering at me over his glasses, "your lab work shows exceptional precision and insight. Are you considering graduate studies?" I explained my financial situation honestly, including how I was working 3 jobs to afford my current education. Professor Martinez leaned back in his chair, considering me thoughtfully. "There's a research assistant position opening in my lab next semester. It comes with a stipend and would look excellent on graduate school applications. I'd like you to apply." That position changed everything. Not only did it pay better than my other jobs, allowing me to drop the restaurant work, but it provided hands-on experience in the field I loved. I spent hours in the lab developing protocols for testing new compounds that showed promise for treating rare genetic disorders. My academic recognition began accumulating. I won the department's Junior Researcher Award, had my name included on a published paper with Professor Martinez, and received an invitation to present at an undergraduate research conference. When I called home to share these accomplishments, Mom answered distractedly, "That's nice, honey. Did you hear Chloe was nominated for Homecoming Queen? We're so excited. I need to take her shopping for a dress this weekend." I learned to share my successes with the people who genuinely celebrated them. Jessica and our small circle of friends threw me a surprise party when my research was published. Professor Martinez mentored me through graduate school applications and wrote glowing recommendation letters. The ultimate test of our family's disparate treatment came when both Chloe and I applied for the same prestigious summer internship at Genesis Pharmaceuticals. The company had a connection to State University through alumni, but also recruited from UCLA, where Chloe had recently been accepted with full parental funding. I spent weeks refining my application, preparing my research portfolio, and practicing interview responses with Professor Martinez. Chloe mentioned applying almost as an afterthought during a family phone call, saying she might as well try since it paid really well. When the acceptance email arrived in my inbox, the validation was sweeter than I could have imagined. I had earned the spot based solely on my merits, competing against students from elite universities nationwide. Chloe called that evening, her voice tight with uncharacteristic tension. "Did you know about the Genesis internship results?" "I did," I replied carefully. "I received an offer today." "Well, I didn't," she said sharply. "It's probably because you had connections through your professor. That's not really fair." The accusation stung, but I recognized it as a defense mechanism from someone unaccustomed to academic disappointment. For perhaps the first time in her life, Chloe was experiencing what it felt like to work for something and not receive it simply because she was Chloe. I said, "The selection was based on qualifications and experience. There will be other opportunities." "Whatever," she replied before hanging up. That moment marked a subtle shift in our dynamic. While my parents continued their pattern of differential treatment, I had begun finding recognition in the wider world that affirmed what I had always believed about myself. My path was harder, but I was building something genuinely mine, brick by painstaking brick. My senior year began as Chloe was starting her freshman year at UCLA. My parents had driven her across the country, spending 2 weeks helping her settle into a premium single dorm room they had paid extra to secure. They sent me photos of her fully furnished space, complete with new bedding, a mini refrigerator, and decorative touches that transformed the institutional room into a stylish living space. I remembered my own move-in day 3 years earlier, when my dad had deposited me at my shared apartment with a $20 bill and advice to be careful with money. I had slept on a second-hand mattress on the floor for the first month until I could afford a bed frame. The fall semester brought news that my parents had purchased a brand new Toyota Camry for Chloe as an early graduation gift, despite her being 3.5 years from completing her degree.
She needs reliable transportation in Los Angeles, Mom explained during our monthly phone call. We worry about her safety using public transportation. I bit back the observation that I had been navigating public transportation in a city with snowy winters for years without similar concern. Instead, I redirected the conversation to my research progress, which Mom acknowledged with distracted hmms before returning to Chloe's sorority rush week stories. 2 weeks later, I overheard a conversation that would crystallize the lifetime of differential treatment. I had called Dad to discuss graduate school applications, but he had apparently answered accidentally without realizing. I could hear him and Mom discussing finances in the background. We really need to start setting aside something for Grace's graduation, Mom was saying. It's only 1 semester away. What did we do for Chloe's high school graduation? Dad asked. We gave her the pearl necklace and took everyone to that nice restaurant downtown. But this is college graduation. It should be more significant. Well, we can't do much with the car payments for Chloe's Toyota and the extra housing costs at UCLA, Dad sighed. Maybe we can get Grace a nice watch. Something professional for job interviews. That seems reasonable. She's practical anyway. She would probably prefer something useful over a celebration. I hung up silently, their words confirming what I had always felt, but tried to deny. They had never expected to celebrate my achievements with the same enthusiasm they showed Chloe. In their minds, I didn't need or deserve the same level of support or recognition. Rather than letting this realization crush me, something shifted inside. I stopped seeking their approval entirely. I stopped sharing my accomplishments or calling home except when absolutely necessary. Instead, I channeled my energy into my future. My breakthrough came in October when my research team identified a promising compound that showed effectiveness against a protein linked to a rare genetic disorder. Professor Martinez was ecstatic. "This is extraordinary work, Grace," he said, reviewing our data. "This level of research is rarely accomplished even at the graduate level." The department head, Dr. Williams, took notice. She invited me to present our findings at the university's research symposium, an honor typically reserved for graduate students and faculty. "Your work shows exceptional promise," she told me after my presentation. "Have you considered applying for the Henderson Award?" The Henderson Award was the university's highest honor, given annually to one graduating student who demonstrated extraordinary academic achievement and research contributions. It came with a substantial $10,000 prize and recognition at graduation. In the 20-year history of the award, only 3 undergraduates had ever received it. With Professor Martinez's encouragement, I submitted my application, including comprehensive documentation of my research contributions, academic record, and the financial challenges I had overcome to pursue my education. Meanwhile, Chloe's first semester struggles became the central focus of family conversations. She had failed 2 classes and was considering changing her major for the 3rd time. My parents responded by hiring private tutors and flying out twice to provide emotional support. When I mentioned my nomination for the Henderson Award during a rare call home, my mother's response was painfully predictable. "That's nice, honey, but when will you get a real job? These academic honors don't pay the bills." I stopped explaining that the research I was doing had real-world applications that could lead to treatments for children suffering from rare diseases. I stopped trying to make them understand the value of my work. The final month of the fall semester, I secretly applied for my dream position at Stellar Therapeutics, a cutting-edge pharmaceutical company known for its work on rare disease treatments. The job would require relocation across the country and offered a salary that would finally free me from financial stress. 2 weeks before graduation, a large envelope arrived in my campus mailbox. The return address made my heart race. The Henderson Award Committee. Inside was a formal letter congratulating me on being selected as this year's recipient, with instructions to keep the news confidential until the official announcement at graduation.
I stood in the mailroom, tears blurring my vision as I read and reread the letter. After years of working in the shadows, unnoticed by those who should have been my biggest supporters, this validation felt like sunlight breaking through clouds. For once, I allowed myself to feel the full weight of my accomplishment without diminishing it or telling myself it didn't matter. That night, I called Jessica, Professor Martinez, and Mrs. Hardison to share my news with the people who truly had seen me all along. Their genuine excitement and pride washed away some of the lingering hurt from years of parental indifference. As graduation approached, I received another letter, this one from Stellar Therapeutics, offering me a position as a research associate with a salary nearly twice what I had expected for an entry-level position. The letter mentioned specifically that my research on protein inhibitors had impressed their senior scientists. I would later learn that Professor Martinez had sent my research directly to the head of their rare disease division, along with a personal recommendation highlighting not only my scientific abilities, but also the determination I had shown in pursuing my education against significant odds. These twin achievements remained my secret as graduation day approached. Let my parents and sister believe what they always had about me. The world was beginning to see something very different. The night before graduation, I sat in my small apartment looking at the Henderson Award letter and the job offer from Stellar Therapeutics. Tomorrow would mark not just the end of my undergraduate journey, but the beginning of a new chapter where my worth would no longer be measured by my family's limited vision of my potential. I had built my own foundation, brick by brick, through countless early mornings and late nights. Now it was time to show everyone what that foundation could support.
Graduation morning dawned clear and cold. I awoke at 5:30, my body still programmed for early shifts despite having taken the week off from all my jobs to prepare for final exams and graduation. Sunlight streamed through the thin curtains of my apartment bedroom as I laid out my graduation attire, the simple black dress I had found on clearance, the cap and gown I had saved for months to purchase, and the honor cords I had earned through 4 years of perfect grades. While my classmates posted photos of family brunches and pre-graduation celebrations on social media, I made myself a simple breakfast of oatmeal and coffee. I had received a text from my parents the night before, informing me they would be arriving with Chloe just before the ceremony began. They had flown her home from UCLA specifically for my graduation, but their message made it clear they would be rushed, coming directly from the airport to the auditorium. I checked the bus schedule and gathered my things. The number 7 bus would get me to campus with an hour to spare, enough time to find my place in the procession and prepare mentally for the day ahead. As I waited at the bus stop, my phone rang with a call from Professor Martinez. "Grace," he said when I answered, his voice vibrating with an energy I rarely heard from my typically composed mentor. "I just wanted to wish you congratulations before the chaos of the day begins." "Thank you," I replied, warming at his thoughtfulness. "For everything. I wouldn't be here without your guidance." His cryptic tone made me wonder if he knew something I didn't, but before I could ask, he wished me good luck and ended the call. The campus buzzed with excitement as I made my way toward the auditorium. Families in their Sunday best clustered around graduating seniors, taking photos and presenting bouquets. I wove through them, acutely aware of my solitary status, until I heard someone calling my name. Jessica ran toward me, her parents following with warm smiles. She threw her arms around me in a tight hug. "We came to cheer for you. Mom and Dad insisted." Jessica's parents embraced me as if I were their own daughter. Her mother pressed a small gift box into my hands. "A little something to mark the occasion," she said kindly. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a charm shaped like a microscope. The thoughtfulness of the gift from a family with their own financial constraints brought tears to my eyes. "Thank you," I whispered, slipping it onto my wrist where it caught the morning light. As we approached the auditorium, I spotted my family near the entrance. Chloe stood at the center of attention as always, holding a bundle of graduation balloons and chatting animatedly with a group of my classmates she had just met. My parents flanked her, nodding along to whatever story she was telling. I approached slowly, observing them before they noticed me. Mom had worn her special occasion dress, the one she had also worn to Chloe's high school graduation. Dad looked uncomfortable in his only suit. Neither of them were carrying anything that might be a gift or card. "There she is," Chloe called when she finally spotted me, "the graduate herself." My parents turned, offering smiles that seemed more obligatory than joyful. Mom gave me a quick hug, careful not to wrinkle her dress. "Congratulations, honey. You look nice." Dad nodded in agreement. "Big day. You must be relieved to be finished." Chloe thrust the balloons toward me. "These are for you. Mom and Dad got them at the airport gift shop." I accepted the balloons, noting the generic "Congratulate Graduate" printed on them, identical to dozens of others visible throughout the crowd. It was clear they had been an afterthought, purchased in haste when they realized they should arrive with something. "Thank you," I said, then introduced them to Jessica and her parents. As the families exchanged pleasantries, I noticed several of my professors approaching, their formal academic regalia standing out among the crowd. Dr. Williams, the department head, reached us first. "Miss Thompson," she said warmly, "I wanted to personally congratulate you before the ceremony begins." She turned to my parents with a bright smile. "You must be incredibly proud. Your daughter has made quite an impression on our entire department." My parents exchanged glances of surprise. "Oh yes," Mom said quickly, "very proud." Professor Martinez arrived next, followed by 2 other science faculty members who had supervised different aspects of my research. They formed a small semicircle around me, each offering congratulations and inside references to our work together, which clearly mystified my family. "We should find our seats," Dad said uncomfortably as the conversation continued over his head. "Actually, we need to borrow Grace for a moment before the procession begins. Department business." She guided me away from my confused family toward a quiet corner where several university officials had gathered, including the university president. My heart began racing as I realized this must be related to the Henderson Award. "Everything is arranged," she told me quietly. "When your name is called for the award, just approach the podium from the graduate seating area. The president will present the award and invite you to speak." "Invite me to speak?" I repeated, panic rising. "I didn't prepare anything." She squeezed my shoulder reassuringly. "Just speak from the heart. Your journey speaks for itself." As we prepared to line up for the procession, I caught a glimpse of my family taking their seats. Chloe was already on her phone, clearly bored by the proceedings. My parents sat stiffly, looking out of place among the enthusiastic families around them. The ceremony began with traditional pomp and circumstance, graduates filing in as proud families cheered and took photos. I wove through them, acutely aware of my solitary status, to a place among the biochemistry graduates where I could just make out my family in the audience. Unlike the parents around them who were eagerly scanning for their children, my parents seemed detached from the ceremony, with Mom occasionally leaning over to whisper something to Chloe. The university president welcomed everyone and began his address, but I barely heard his words. My mind raced with the realization that in a short time, everything would change. Whatever happened today, I would no longer be the overlooked daughter, the responsible one expected to manage without support. One way or another, they would finally see me. The conferring of degrees proceeded alphabetically by department. As biochemistry approached, I felt a strange calm settling over me. Years of working without recognition had prepared me for this moment, though I never imagined it would come in such a public way. When the president paused after the regular degrees and announced, "Before we continue, we have a special presentation to make," a curious murmur ran through the crowd. My heart began pounding so loudly I wondered if the graduate seated beside me could hear it. The moment of truth was finally here.
Each year, the university presents the prestigious Henderson Award to one graduating student who has demonstrated extraordinary academic achievement and research contributions, the president continued. This year's recipient has maintained a perfect grade point average while conducting groundbreaking research that has already been recognized in the scientific community. I held my breath as he paused for effect. "It is my great honor to present this year's Henderson Award to Grace Thompson." The auditorium erupted in applause as my name echoed through the speakers. For a moment, I sat frozen, the sound washing over me in waves. Then Professor Martinez, seated with the faculty, caught my eye and nodded encouragingly. I rose on legs that felt suddenly unsteady and made my way to the stage. As I climbed the steps, I caught a glimpse of my parents in the audience. Their expressions of utter shock might have been comical under different circumstances. Chloe had actually put down her phone and was staring open-mouthed at the stage. The university president shook my hand firmly as he presented me with an elegant plaque and an envelope containing the $10,000 award check. "Congratulations, Miss Thompson," he said, his voice amplified by the microphone. "Your work has the potential to change lives." Then he stepped aside, gesturing for me to take the podium. The sea of faces before me blurred slightly as I gathered my thoughts. I hadn't prepared for this moment, but suddenly I knew exactly what needed to be said. "Thank you for this tremendous honor," I began, my voice stronger than I expected. My journey to the stage has not been a traditional one. While many of my fellow graduates had the privilege of focusing solely on their studies, I worked 3 jobs throughout my time here, riding the bus at 5 in the morning to open the campus coffee shop before heading to organic chemistry lectures. A ripple of surprised murmurs moved through the audience. I share this not to complain, but to offer hope to anyone facing obstacles in their education. What seems like a disadvantage can become your greatest strength. The discipline and resilience I developed working my way through college prepared me for the rigors of scientific research in ways I never anticipated. I paused, finding Jessica's supportive face in the crowd before continuing. "I am deeply grateful to those who saw potential in me when I needed it most. Professor Martinez, who mentored me with unwavering belief in my abilities, Dr. Williams in the biochemistry department, who provided opportunities that transformed my education, my roommate Jessica and her family, who became my support system when I needed one most." I deliberately didn't look toward my family as I continued. "The research we conducted on protein inhibitors for rare genetic disorders represents just the beginning of what I hope will be a lifetime of meaningful work. Science has the power to alleviate suffering, and I am committed to using the knowledge and skills I have gained here to make a difference in the lives of patients and families affected by these conditions." I took a deep breath before delivering my final words. "To anyone who has ever felt overlooked or underestimated, please know that your worth is not determined by others' recognition. It lives in your dedication, your integrity, and the impact your work has on the world. Thank you again for this honor, which I accept with deep gratitude and humility." The applause that followed was thunderous. As I returned to my seat, I noticed something unprecedented. Faculty members and students alike were giving me a standing ovation. Professor Martinez beamed with pride, and Dr. Williams wiped away what looked like suspiciously a tear. The remainder of the ceremony passed in a blur. When it concluded, graduates streamed out of the auditorium to reunite with their families. I found myself surrounded not by relatives, but by professors and research students, all eager to congratulate me. Someone from the university media team asked for an interview, and several industry representatives who had attended the ceremony handed me business cards. In the midst of this unexpected attention, the university president approached with a distinguished-looking man in an expensive suit. "Miss Thompson, I'd like to introduce Dr. Richard Chen, CEO of Stellar Therapeutics. He was quite impressed by your speech and asked to meet you." I widened in recognition. "Dr. Chen, it's an honor. I actually just accepted a position with your company last week." He smiled warmly. "I know. I personally approved your hiring package after reviewing your research. We doubled the standard starting salary for someone of your experience level because we believe you're going to make significant contributions to our rare disease program." The president looked impressed. "It seems your future is already taking shape brilliantly." As they moved on to greet other graduates,
I finally spotted my family hovering uncertainly at the edge of the crowd that had formed around me. I excused myself from a conversation with fellow researchers and approached them. Mom spoke first, her voice unusually hesitant. "Grace, we had no idea. The award? The job offer? Why did you never tell us?" "I tried," I said simply, "many times." Dad shifted uncomfortably. "We always knew you were smart, but this level of recognition is unexpected. For you, perhaps. Others have seen it for years." Chloe stared at me as if seeing me for the first time. "How did you do all that while working 3 jobs? I can barely manage my classes with no job at all." The question seemed genuine, the first time she had ever expressed interest in my experience rather than centering her own. "One day at a time," I told her, and with a lot of help from people who believed in me. Mom glanced around at the faculty and industry professionals still waiting to speak with me. "We thought we would take you to dinner to celebrate," she said, clearly trying to reclaim some parental role in my achievement. "Maybe that nice Italian place downtown?" I considered the offer briefly before responding. "Thank you, but I already have plans. Professor Martinez and his wife are hosting a celebration for me and the other research students. Jessica and her parents will be there too." "Oh," Mom said, clearly disappointed. "Well, perhaps another time." "Perhaps," I agreed, not committing to anything specific. Chloe surprised me by asking quietly, "Could we talk sometime soon about how you managed everything? I'm really struggling at UCLA and could use some advice." Her vulnerability was so unexpected that I found myself nodding. "Call me next week. We can set up a time." As I prepared to rejoin my academic supporters, Dad cleared his throat. "We are proud of you, Grace. We always have been." I met his gaze directly. "Thank you. But today I realized something important. While your pride means something to me, I no longer need it to know my worth." With those words, I turned and walked toward the people who had truly supported my journey, leaving my family to reflect on what they had missed by failing to see what was in front of them all along. The celebration at Professor Martinez's home that evening was everything a family dinner would not have been. Surrounded by mentors and friends who understood the significance of my achievements, I felt truly seen and valued. When Professor Martinez raised a toast to my future at Stellar Therapeutics, I realized I had found my true family in these connections forged through shared passion and mutual respect. "To Grace," he announced, lifting his glass of sparkling cider, "who proves that brilliance shines brightest when it's forged through adversity. Your journey from that scared freshman working 3 jobs to today's Henderson Award winner has been nothing short of inspiring." The small gathering of faculty members, graduate students, and Jessica's family raised their glasses. Dr. Williams added, "What impresses me most is not just your academic achievements, but the grace you've shown throughout your struggles. You never became bitter or gave up on your dreams." Mrs. Harrison, my 8th grade teacher, who had driven 2 hours to attend my graduation, wiped away tears. "I knew that first day I stayed after school to discuss science journals with you that you were special. Watching you accept that award today was one of the proudest moments of my teaching career." As the evening progressed, conversations flowed naturally between science, future plans, and shared memories of my undergraduate journey. Professor Martinez pulled me aside during dessert. "Grace, I have something to tell you," he said, his expression serious. "Dr. Chen from Stellar Therapeutics didn't just happen to be at your graduation. I contacted him personally 3 weeks ago and sent your research portfolio. I told him he needed to see what one of my students had accomplished under extraordinary circumstances." I stared at him, processing this revelation. "You recommended me directly to the CEO?" "Not just recommended. I insisted he attend your graduation ceremony. I wanted him to see for himself the caliber of person he was hiring. When he read about your protein inhibitor research and learned about the conditions under which you produced it, he immediately authorized the salary increase." The knowledge that my mentor had advocated so strongly for me brought fresh tears to my eyes. Professor Martinez, I don't know how to thank you. He smiled warmly. You already have. Watching you grow from that determined freshman into the scientist you are today has been its own reward. But Grace, promise me something. Anything. Don't let your family's oversight define how you see yourself going forward. You've proven your worth to the people who matter in your field. Focus on that validation, not the recognition you didn't receive from those who should have given it freely. As Jessica and I walked home under a star-filled sky, she linked her arm through mine. So, how does it feel to have proven everyone wrong? I considered the question carefully. It feels less like proving others wrong and more like proving myself right. I always knew what I was capable of. Now everyone else knows too. What's next? She asked as we reached my apartment building. Next, I start my real life. For the first time ever, I get to make choices based on what I want, not what I can afford or what others expect of me. The following weeks blurred together in a whirlwind of preparations for my move across the country. Stellar Therapeutics had provided a generous relocation package, and I found myself in the surreal position of apartment hunting without having to calculate whether I could afford groceries after paying rent. My parents called sporadically during this period, their conversations stilted and uncomfortable as they attempted to recalibrate our relationship. Mom's calls often began with variations of, "We've been thinking," followed by revisionist history about how they'd always believed in my potential. "Your determination comes from your father's side of the family," she said during one particularly awkward conversation. "We always knew you would accomplish great things." I learned to respond neutrally to these attempts at claiming retroactive credit, neither agreeing nor arguing. The anger that I had carried for so long was fading, replaced by something closer to indifference. Chloe, surprisingly, became the family member who reached out most genuinely. True to her word, she called to ask for advice about managing her struggling academic performance at UCLA. "I failed another midterm," she admitted during one of our conversations. "I keep thinking I can wing it like I did in high school, but college is different. How did you stay motivated when things got hard?" For the first time in our relationship, I heard genuine vulnerability in her voice rather than the expectation that solutions would be handed to her. The motivation came from knowing I had no safety net. Every grade mattered because my future depended entirely on my own efforts. But Chloe, you can create that same motivation without the financial pressure. You just have to decide what you actually want from your education. "I don't even know what I want to study," she confessed. "I picked communications because it seemed easy, but I'm not passionate about anything." Then maybe it's time to explore. Take some classes outside your major. Talk to professors about their research. Find something that makes you curious enough to stay up late reading about it. These conversations revealed a side of my sister I'd never seen before. Someone struggling to find purpose in a life where everything had been provided, but nothing had been earned. While I couldn't fix her problems, I found I could offer guidance without resentment. My last day at State University carried an emotional weight I hadn't anticipated. Walking across the campus where I'd struggled and ultimately triumphed, I felt a deep gratitude for the institution that had given me a chance when my dream schools became financially impossible. Professor Martinez met me outside the biochemistry building for a final goodbye. "You know, I've been thinking about your graduation speech. That line about worth not being determined by others' recognition, I've been sharing that with struggling students ever since. I hope it helps them." "It will, but more importantly, I hope you remember it yourself as you move forward. You're entering a world where recognition and advancement often depend on factors beyond merit alone. Hold on to what you learned here about your own value." As I loaded my belongings into the moving truck the next morning, I took one last look at the small apartment that had been my home for 4 years. The acceptance letters from Harvard and MIT still hung on my wall, no longer symbols of missed opportunities, but reminders of potential recognized. Jessica hugged me goodbye with promises to visit once I got settled. "You're going to change the world," she whispered. "I just know it." Driving away from the campus and the town that shaped me, I felt something I'd rarely experienced in my 22 years: complete optimism about the future. For the first time in my life, I was moving towards something I'd chosen rather than away from something I couldn't afford. The road ahead stretched wide and full of possibilities, and I was finally free to explore them all.
My first day at Stellar Therapeutics felt like stepping into a different universe. The gleaming research facility in Boston stretched across multiple buildings, each equipped with technology I had only dreamed of accessing during my undergraduate years. As I walked through the lobby in my new professional attire, I marveled at how far I had traveled from that scared freshman riding the bus at dawn. Dr. Sarah Kim, my immediate supervisor in the rare disease division, greeted me with genuine enthusiasm. "Grace, we've been eagerly waiting for you to join us. Dr. Chen has told everyone about your protein inhibitor research. We're excited to see what you can accomplish with our resources." The laboratory assigned to our team was 3 times the size of my entire undergraduate research space, filled with equipment worth more than my family's house. My workstation included a high-end computer, access to databases I'd previously only dreamed of using, and a budget for materials that eliminated the constant worry about costs. "This is overwhelming," I admitted to Dr. Kim as she showed me around the facility. She smiled knowingly. "Dr. Chen mentioned you'd worked under challenging conditions during your undergraduate research. It takes time to adjust to having everything you need at your fingertips. The key is not to let the resources intimidate you. You earned your place here through your abilities, not your access to equipment." My first project involved expanding on the protein inhibitor research I'd begun at State University, but with access to advanced screening technologies and collaboration with clinical researchers. Within weeks, I was working alongside scientists with decades of experience, contributing ideas that were taken seriously and implemented in our experimental protocols. The financial transformation of my life was equally dramatic. My starting salary was more than my parents' combined income, allowing me to rent a beautiful one-bedroom apartment in Cambridge with large windows overlooking the Charles River. For the first time in my life, I grocery shopped without calculating costs, bought books without checking if used copies were available, and even purchased a reliable car, a modest Honda Civic that represented freedom from public transportation schedules. More importantly, I began paying off my student loans aggressively. Each payment felt like severing another chain from my past struggles. I set up automatic transfers to an investment account, building the financial security I'd never experienced growing up. 3 months into my new position, Dr. Chen called me into his office. "Grace, I want to discuss your progress. Dr. Kim tells me you've adapted remarkably well to our environment and that your contributions have already enhanced our research protocols." I sat straighter, wondering if I was about to receive feedback about areas needing improvement. She continued, "We're promoting you to Senior Research Associate with a corresponding salary increase and leadership responsibilities for the new protein inhibitor clinical trial preparation." The promotion came with a $20,000 raise and my own small team of junior researchers. At 23, I was leading scientists with graduate degrees, some of whom were older than me. The imposter syndrome I'd battled through college threatened to resurface. But Dr. Kim's mentorship helped me navigate these new challenges. "Leadership isn't about having all the answers," she told me during one of our weekly check-ins. "It's about asking the right questions and creating an environment where your team can do their best work. Your undergraduate experience working under pressure has actually prepared you for this better than you realize." Meanwhile, my relationship with my family continued its complicated evolution. My parents' calls became more frequent once they realized the extent of my professional success. But their conversations often felt transactional, updates about their lives mixed with subtle requests for advice about their own financial concerns. "Your father's company is restructuring," Mom mentioned during one call. "He's worried about his position. Do you think your company might have openings in accounting?" The irony wasn't lost on me. The daughter they deemed capable of figuring things out was now being asked to provide solutions for problems they never expected to face. I helped where I could, sending Dad information about job openings and even putting in a word with Stellar's HR department, though ultimately, his lack of advanced qualifications made him unsuitable for positions at our level.
The role reversal felt strange, being the family member others turned to for stability and guidance. Chloe's transformation proved more genuine. After our conversations about finding passion in her studies, she'd switched her major to elementary education and discovered a natural aptitude for working with children. Her grades dramatically improved, and for the first time, she spoke about her future with genuine enthusiasm, rather than vague expectations of things working out. I volunteer at an after-school program now, she told me during one of our regular phone calls. These kids from low-income families remind me of you, actually. They work so much harder than their peers who have everything handed to them. I'm starting to understand what you went through. What do you mean? I asked, curious about her perspective. She said, I see kids doing homework in the cafeteria because they don't have quiet spaces at home. Kids who wear the same clothes every day but never miss an assignment. They have this determination in their eyes that I recognize now. It's the same look you had all through high school and college, but I was too self-absorbed to notice. These conversations revealed a maturity in Chloe I hadn't expected. Her acknowledgement of the differential treatment we'd received didn't erase the past, but it began healing wounds I'd carried for years. My work at Stellar continued exceeding expectations. Our protein inhibitor compound showed promising results in preliminary trials, and I found myself presenting our findings at national conferences alongside senior scientists I'd read about during my undergraduate years. At a pharmaceutical industry conference in San Francisco, I ran into Dr. Martinez, who was presenting his latest research. His face lit up when he spotted me across the exhibition hall. Grace, I heard through the grapevine that you're making waves at Stellar. Dr. Chen spoke very highly of your contributions during his keynote yesterday. We found a quiet corner to catch up, and I shared details about my projects and the clinical trial preparation. Dr. Martinez listened with the same engaged attention he'd shown during our undergraduate meetings. I'm proud of you, Grace, he said finally, but not surprised. What does surprise me is how you've maintained your humility despite all this success. Many people would have developed an ego by now. The struggles keep things in perspective, I replied. When you've worked 3 jobs just to afford textbooks, it's hard to take success for granted. As I flew back to Boston that evening, looking down at the lights of cities below, I reflected on how dramatically my life had changed in less than a year. The scared, overworked undergraduate who'd ridden the bus to her graduation ceremony felt like a different person entirely. Yet the core of who I was remained unchanged. The curiosity that drove my research, the determination that pushed me through challenges, and the empathy for others facing similar struggles. Success hadn't transformed me. It had simply given me the platform to express who I'd always been. Back in my Cambridge apartment that night, I began drafting a proposal for a mentorship program at Stellar specifically designed to support promising researchers from disadvantaged backgrounds. If I could use my position to make the path easier for others, then every challenge I'd faced would have served a purpose beyond my own advancement.
2 years have passed since that transformative graduation day. At 25, looking back at that period of my life feels like watching a movie about someone else, though the lessons remain deeply embedded in who I have become. My position at Stellar Therapeutics evolved rapidly from senior research associate to team leader, as my work on protein inhibitors showed extraordinary results in human trials. Last month, our team received FDA approval to begin Phase 3 trials on a treatment that could dramatically improve quality of life for children with a previously untreatable genetic disorder called Hendrix syndrome. When I watch the videos of families who might benefit from our work, parents holding children who suffer daily from symptoms we might soon alleviate, every late night in the lab and every struggle through college feels worthwhile. The protein inhibitor compound I first identified in that cramped undergraduate laboratory is now manufactured in facilities across 3 states, representing hope for thousands of families worldwide. The financial stability I once dreamed of has become reality beyond my wildest expectations. I purchased my first home last year, a sunny townhouse in Cambridge with large windows that flood my living room with light each morning. The mortgage payment is less than what I used to earn working all 3 of my college jobs combined.
The student loans that once kept me awake with anxiety have been fully repaid, and I've started an investment portfolio that grows monthly without my constant attention. For the first time in my life, I make decisions based on what I want, rather than what I can afford. Last month, I booked a vacation to Italy without checking my bank balance first. The freedom still feels surreal. The journey to healing my relationship with my family has been complex and ongoing. The initial months after graduation were filled with awkward phone calls and tentative text messages as my parents attempted to recalibrate our relationship in light of my success. Their congratulatory messages often felt like attempts to retroactively claim credit for achievements they neither supported nor acknowledged. "We always knew you would do great things," Mom would say during our calls, conveniently forgetting the years of dismissal and differential treatment. "Your determination comes from your father's side of the family." I struggled with anger at first, reliving moments of injustice and inequality that had shaped my childhood and young adult years. My therapist, Dr. Marshall, helped me process these emotions without allowing them to consume me. Forgiveness isn't about excusing their behavior. It's about freeing yourself from the burden of resentment so you can fully embrace your present and future. Gradually, I established boundaries that allowed me to maintain family connections while protecting my emotional well-being. I limited visits to twice a year and kept conversations focused on the present rather than revisiting past hurts. When old patterns emerged, I learned to address them directly rather than silently accepting the status quo. My relationship with Chloe evolved in unexpected ways. Our conversation after graduation led to several more, each progressively more honest than the last. After struggling through her sophomore year at UCLA, she transferred to a smaller college closer to home where she discovered a genuine passion for elementary education. "I spent so many years trying to be the social butterfly Mom wanted. I never figured out who I actually am or what I actually enjoy. Watching you be so certain about your path made me realize how lost I've been." Those words helped heal a wound I'd carried since childhood. The feeling that my sister had received not only more support, but also more love simply for being herself, while I had to earn every scrap of approval through achievement. Chloe graduated last spring with honors in elementary education and now teaches third grade at an inner-city school in Hartford. She calls regularly with stories about her students, many of whom remind me of my own childhood struggles. "There's this girl in my class, Maria. She does her homework with flashlight because they don't have reliable electricity at home, but she never misses an assignment. She has the same determined look you used to have. I make sure she knows how brilliant she is every single day." My parents have made halting attempts at reconciliation, acknowledging in small ways the disparity in how they treated us. Dad called unexpectedly on the anniversary of my graduation last year. "I've been thinking about how differently we supported you and Chloe. At the time, we truly believed we were responding to your different needs. You seemed so capable, and she seemed to need more guidance. But I see now that we failed to recognize how our actions affected you. I'm sorry, Grace." The apology, while imperfect, represented growth I hadn't thought possible. I accepted it with the understanding that it couldn't erase the past, but might help shape a healthier future. My success at Stellar led to opportunities I never could have imagined. Last year, I was invited to speak at the International Conference on Rare Disease Research, presenting our findings to an audience of over 2,000 scientists and clinicians from around the world. Standing at that podium, I thought about my undergraduate self, working alone in that tiny lab, never imagining that her research would one day influence treatment protocols globally. The mentorship program I established at Stellar has become one of my proudest achievements outside of research. We now support 15 undergraduate students annually, providing paid internships, mentorship, and career guidance to promising scientists from disadvantaged backgrounds. Each semester, I meet individually with participants, offering the kind of support I wished I had during my own struggles. Sophia, a biochemistry major supporting herself through night shifts at a 24-hour pharmacy, reminds me powerfully of my younger self. When she apologized for arriving at our mentoring session with dark circles under her eyes after working all night, I shared my own story of falling asleep in the library between jobs. The path is harder, but the strength you're building now will serve you throughout your career, and unlike my experience, you won't walk it alone. Last month, I received news that still feels surreal. Dr. Chen announced that our protein inhibitor treatment has been fast-tracked for approval based on the extraordinary results of our Phase 3 trials. More significantly, the FDA has requested that I serve on their advisory committee for rare disease treatments. At 25, I'll be the youngest scientist ever appointed to such a position. Your journey from undergraduate researcher to advisory committee member in just 3 years is unprecedented, Dr. Chen told me when he delivered the news. But what impresses me most isn't the speed of your advancement, it's how you've maintained your integrity and commitment to helping others throughout your rise. That evening, I called the people who had believed in me from the beginning. Professor Martinez's pride was audible through the phone. I always knew you were special, Grace, but even I couldn't have predicted this trajectory. You're going to influence policy that affects treatment development for years to come. Mrs. Harrison, now retired from teaching, cried when I shared the news. That shy 8th grader who stayed after school to discuss science journals is now advising the federal government. I'm so proud of the woman you've become. As I sit in my home office tonight, preparing materials for tomorrow's committee orientation, I'm struck by the profound transformation of my circumstances. The scared young woman who rode the bus to graduation, clutching generic balloons from an airport gift shop, now holds influence over decisions that will impact thousands of lives. Yet, at my core, I remain the same person who found purpose in the possibility of alleviating suffering through science. Success has amplified my voice and expanded my platform, but it hasn't changed the values that drive me. Tomorrow begins a new chapter, one where my voice will help shape the future of medical research, and I'm ready.
The most profound lesson I've learned is that true success comes not from external validation or material rewards, but from living authentically and using your unique gifts to contribute meaningfully to the world. The BMW my sister received at graduation has long since been replaced, the balloons deflated and discarded. But the work I do each day touches lives in ways that will outlast any physical possession. 6 months ago, I received a letter that crystallized everything my journey has meant. It came from Maria Santos, the mother of a 7-year-old boy named Diego, who was among the first children to receive our protein inhibitor treatment for Hendrix syndrome. "Dear Dr. Thompson," she wrote in careful handwriting, "before your medicine, my son Diego couldn't play with other children. The pain was too much, and he was so tired all the time. Yesterday, he played soccer for 2 hours and laughed the whole time. I wanted you to know that somewhere in Phoenix, Arizona, a little boy is running and playing because of your work. You gave us hope when we had none left." I kept that letter on my desk for weeks, reading it whenever the pressures of my position felt overwhelming. This is why I endured those early morning bus rides, why I worked 3 jobs while maintaining perfect grades, why I pushed through moments when giving up seemed easier than continuing. Not for the awards or recognition, but for Diego and thousands of children like him. Last week, I was invited back to State University to deliver the commencement address. Standing at the podium where I had accepted the Henderson Award, I looked out at the sea of graduates and saw myself reflected in their hopeful, anxious faces. "Success is not measured by the support you receive," I told them, "but by the obstacles you overcome and the impact you create. Some of you have walked a harder road than others to reach this day. Know that those struggles have forged in you qualities that no amount of privilege could provide: resilience, determination, and profound empathy for others facing similar challenges." After the ceremony, a young woman approached me with tears in her eyes. "Your story changed how I see my own struggles," she said. "I've been so angry about having to work while my roommates party. But today, I realize that what feels like a disadvantage now might become my greatest strength.
In those moments, I find the deepest healing. The pain of my past has become purpose, transforming into a beacon for others navigating similar paths. My experience has made me particularly attuned to the struggles of young scientists facing barriers similar to mine. The mentorship program at Stellar has expanded to include partnerships with 5 universities, and we've secured funding to support 50 students annually. Each success story validates every challenge I faced. Last month, Sophia, the student who reminded me so much of myself, received early admission to Harvard's graduate program with a full fellowship. When she called to share the news, her voice trembling with excitement and disbelief, I remembered the phone call I had made to Mrs. Harrison years ago, seeking guidance when my own dreams seemed impossible. "This is just the beginning," I told her. "The world needs scientists who understand struggle, who won't give up when research gets difficult, who remember why the work matters. You're going to do incredible things." The FDA Advisory Committee position has opened doors I never imagined possible. Last month, I testified before Congress about the importance of funding rare disease research, sharing not only scientific data, but also Diego's story and the stories of hundreds of other families affected by our work. When we invest in innovative research, I told the assembled representatives, we're not just funding science, we're funding hope. We're telling families like the Santos family that their children's lives matter, that their struggles are seen, that someone is working tirelessly to help. The legislation passed with bipartisan support, securing $200 million in additional funding for rare disease research over the next 5 years. Walking out of the Capitol building that day, I thought about the young woman who had once calculated whether she could afford both textbooks and groceries. Now her voice was helping shape national policy. My relationship with my family has settled into a new equilibrium. We'll never have the close bond I once craved, but we found a way to connect that honors both our history and our growth. My parents attend my major speaking engagements when possible, and while their pride feels somewhat performative, I've learned to accept it as genuine within their limitations. Chloe and I have grown closer than I ever expected. She often seeks my advice about challenging students in her classroom, and I've learned to appreciate her natural ability to connect with children in ways that complement my more analytical approach to problem solving. "You know," she told me during our last visit, "I used to resent how smart you were. I felt like I could never measure up. But now I realize we were meant for different things. You change the world through science. I change it one child at a time. Both matter." If I could speak to my younger self, that determined young woman standing alone at the bus stop on graduation morning, I would tell her, "The future is brighter than you can imagine. Your worth was never determined by how others valued you, but by how you persisted in valuing yourself when no one else seemed to. The path ahead had obstacles, but you possessed everything needed to face them. The discipline you've learned from working multiple jobs will serve you in demanding research environments. The resilience you've built from being overlooked will help you persevere when experiments fail. The empathy you've developed from struggling will guide you toward research that truly matters. Most importantly, the independence you've been forced to cultivate will become your greatest strength. You'll never have to depend on others' approval to know your worth or others' support to achieve your dreams." As I write this, sitting in my home office overlooking the Charles River, the walls lined with awards and recognition that once seemed impossible, I'm preparing for tomorrow's flight to Geneva. The World Health Organization has invited me to lead an international task force on rare disease treatment development, an opportunity to influence global health policy at the age of 26. The scared undergraduate who rode the bus to her graduation ceremony clutching airport gift shop balloons never could have imagined this trajectory. Yet every struggle, every disappointment, every moment of being overlooked contributed to building the person capable of seizing these opportunities. So what about you? Have you ever felt underestimated or overlooked only to prove your worth through sheer determination? I'd love to hear your stories in the comments below. Remember, regardless of the challenges you face, they're shaping you into who you're meant to become. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to hear more journeys of resilience and growth. Share this with someone who might need to be reminded of their own strength today. Thank you for listening to my story. And remember, sometimes the greatest gift isn't getting what you think you want, it's discovering what you truly need to become who you're meant to be.